On this week's episode of the WNP podcast, when you start on third, that doesn't mean you hit a triple. Stay tuned. Episode 161 of the We're Not Professionals podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mitchelson, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. Chase, how are you on this lovely Wednesday night?
I am doing swell. Thank you for asking. It's a good thing that I was muted during your intro. Gotta say that because every time I hear that quote, it gets funnier and funnier, and you would have heard me laughing very loudly and cut you off there at the end.
Yeah, and for those wondering, why is there a baseball? No. Baseball season's over, actually, if you weren't aware. Now you are. This is actually a quote for Ryan Day. And it's funny, Chase, because we're going over this for the second, kind of third time, because we were about 14 minutes into this episode. Oh, man, it was so good. We were flowing. I was bashing Chase because of his horrible takes, and you'll hear about those pretty soon here. They're coming up. But it wasn't recording Chase's audio. And
Mike,
yeah,
can I say something?
Sure.
So we always used to record Skype, and you haven't done that in a little while. When you get back to it, just in case.
We'll see. No,
because it would have been the easier solution, but it is what it is.
It would have. And then we went take two, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was my end or Chase's end, but someone's end of technology just like exploded. We just heard a beep and then just nothing. So
when that happened, you sounded so depressed and disappointed.
Yeah. But hey, we're back here now for a third take. It's going to be a great show. We're going to be
just delaying my dinner 15 minutes.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
It's all good.
But we've got Michigan, Ohio State to talk about. USC gets a big win over Notre Dame. We'll talk about the fallout for Ohio State and Ryan Day. What does it mean for the team? What does it mean for Ryan Day? Caleb Williams, is he the runaway Heisman winner at this point? Talk about some coaching hirings, and then the college football playoffs and what can change with the conference championship games this time around. But we'll start with Michigan versus Ohio State. A big win for the Wolverines. Their first win in Ohio since 2000. Chase, this is a big day for you. I'll let you kick it off.
Yeah, man, it was a good day for the pockets. I robbed the casinos and sports books a little bit, so that was a good part of it. But it was even greater to see Michigan play so well, just dominate the Buckeyes. And down there in Ohio, I forgot to say this earlier, so I'm happy we can go back to it. Actually, I saw a tweet saying, "Now we know what No November was really about," and it was a Michigan fan, with the stupid Ohio State Buckeyes. It was just absolutely hilarious. I loved it. It was great. But nonetheless, Michigan looked very strong in this game. It was good to see J.J. McCarthy, step up. He made some really big plays. He's not the quarterback we expected. He's not some groundbreaking prospect, but he's a really efficient college quarterback, and he can run the ball. He can hit deep throws. Even he was about 50% accuracy. He still does a really good job finding his open receivers who can go on and make big explosive plays after he gets them the ball. So he's a very solid college quarterback, and he does everything that you need to do to win for a school like Michigan. And I was a little nervous about the running game because my brother told me a stat before the game that the last 30 years, something like that, whoever leads rushing in this game as a team wins the game. So with Blake Corum being injured and not really being used too much or not really being effective, I was very nervous to see what was going to happen. I knew Donovan Edwards was talented, but Blake Corum was having such a dominant year that you really just don't know. But man, did he explode. Donovan Edwards really went off, especially kind of the second half of the game. Michigan started off pretty slow, only had a few rushing yards, but really got it rolling after a while, and Donovan Edwards had a hell of a game, and said on the earlier part too that Jim Harbaugh, geez, not John Harbaugh, he's a little busy with the Ravens. Jim Harbaugh is maybe the best college coach, maybe coach in general when it comes to halftime adjustments. Michigan looks like a completely different and better team in the second half. Every single game they play this year, he just does so well, and it really showed in this game because they just completely dominated the Buckeyes in the second half. CJ Stroud wasn't getting anything done. They weren't getting anything done in the run game. I understand they were down to their third string back, but it doesn't matter. It's college football. Next man up, got to find a way to win. But Stroud he couldn't handle the pressure, really struggled, tried to play some hero balls, threw some interceptions, and really just did not have a great game. Just did not look very strong. But man, that Michigan offense looked great. The Michigan defense, they've really come together as a unit. It's a little worrisome when you lose a couple of big pieces like Hutchinson, Ojabo, and Hill to the NFL, but they found a way to just kind of get it done together.
Yeah, and Donovan Edwards is a guy that I was super excited to watch coming into the season. I was really hoping for more of a role for this kid, but Blake Corum has been fantastic, and I didn't expect him to be this good, so Donovan Edwards took a little bit of a backseat, a second role to Blake Corum, but this game he was really able to shine. You love to see it. On 2 carries, he had 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. How about that for a stat? Pretty good little player. But like I said in the first time, and this is the one thing that stinks about messing up the recording is because Chase and I already know what we're going to say. We can't get the live reactions. We're going to do our best, though. Now, this is only for the Michigan-Ohio State stuff, but once we start moving into the other categories, we'll be natural. We'll be live going. It'll be great. But Michigan, they hit 6 touchdowns, but 4 of them were lawn balls, and that worries me a little bit when it comes to actually going into the playoffs and having a lot of success because having more than half of your touchdowns in this game come from miracle plays is just not going to happen against a team like the Georgia Bulldogs. And hey, I do have stats now actually that can back that up because the Georgia Bulldogs last year, we knew how great that defense was, a legendary defense for the Georgia Bulldogs, only giving up 10.4 points per game. Now, at some point, they were at like 6, but they ended at 10.4 points per game. The Georgia defense this year, 12.4. Still number 1 in the nation.
Oh,
still
they're getting worse.
I mean, 2 points, it's not as good,
safety,
but
man.
It's still pretty fantastic, giving up less than 2 touchdowns a game. I don't see Michigan being able to put up, 4 miracle balls against the Georgia defense. So a little bit worried there, but I don't think they should have a problem with Purdue at all. And then also Michigan's defensive line, you talked about it, Ojabo, Hutchinson, not there. But I could argue that their defensive line was actually better this season and has looked better most recently against this Ohio State team because CJ Stroud could not handle the pressure whatsoever. They were in his face all day long.
And, when it comes to the college playoff things and you talk about these big plays that they had to go against a team like Georgia, obviously that's not going to come. Well, I mean, I should say, hopefully that would come in the national championship game. Who you never know what's going to happen in these are the national. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen in these conference championship games, but Michigan, Georgia, that'd be the most entertaining college football national championship that we would see in quite a while. But really, all you need is 2 of those big plays, which even if Georgia is a very talented defense, Michigan's still a very talented offense, one of the best in the nation, and their defense is second in the nation too. So they're a very good team. It's not like they're any chumps. They can pull off a big play or 2, and if they can have 2 or 3 sustained drives that lead to some sort of scoring, they'll be just fine. So I'm not super concerned. I think it's still going to be a hard win. Georgia's the best team in the country for a reason, but if they do happen to play, I don't think Michigan's going to get necessarily blown out, kind of like they did last year. But, talking about the CJ Stroud thing again, let's circle back to our discussion that we had in the non-recorded part of this. Yep. We talked about CJ Stroud, his struggles this year, and I talked about my thoughts on the quarterback class this year. I was a big fan of this quarterback class coming into the season. I thought that there was going to be a lot of guys that were going to take the right steps, take big steps forward. I thought Will Levis was going to take the right steps. Thought Tyler Van Dyke was going to look solid. I thought Anthony Richardson was going to look competent. And, well, what a disappointment. Those 3 guys, obviously, not really much in the conversation as top, 5-10 picks too much anymore. Maybe Will Levis is. But Bryce Young, I think he's not lost his position as the top quarterback in this draft class, maybe the first overall pick. But CJ Stroud, he's really disappointed me. I had him as my number 1 quarterback coming into the year, and he's done nothing but underwhelm, disappoint. Every time he faces pressure, he folds. In whatever game it was, I don't remember. He only threw for 76 yards. That should never happen, no matter how beat up your team is, no matter what conditions you're in. If you're going to be, a top 5 quarterback drafted like that, that's just kind of not acceptable. He's had too many too many signs of weakness where like I'd be very nervous drafting him. I really I wanted the Lions to get him beginning of the year. I was really looking forward to it, but now I kind of just want them to stay away.
Yeah, and this is where I disagree because C.J. Stroud's still second in Heisman voting for a reason. I think there's a little bit more recency bias because of how poorly he looked against Michigan and against that pressure that Michigan defense brought. But I do got to say, I think like two, maybe three, but I think two of C.J. Stroud's interceptions against Michigan was garbage time where he was trying to make a play to get his team back in it, and the receiver would drop it or, something would happen. I'm going
to interject real quick.
Yep.
They did happen when he was trying to play a bit of hero ball, but still both interceptions kind of came when Michigan got that pressure on him, and he's just like, screw it. Marvin Harrison down there somewhere, and it just didn't work out because that pressure was coming, and he just tried to dump it off really quickly, and Michigan capitalized. So even if they were kind of garbage time playing hero ball, they still weren't the greatest looks because it looked like he folded under pressure.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that you could see, obviously, that when it came to him handling the pressure, he's no Joe Burrow, that's for sure. But he's still got the intangibles. He's shown how good he can be. He's still having a very good season when you just look at the stats. When he plays against lesser competition, he is destroying them. He put up over 350 yards and 5 touchdowns against the likes of Indiana. But yeah, I think that I would still be very happy to take him in the top half of the first round. We talked about how, the Detroit Lions, they have likely a top 3 pick with that Rams selection. And then their second pick in the first round will be their own, which I assume will probably be in the 12 to 16 range. If C.J. Stroud's still on the board there for me, that's a slam dunk. And then I did want to say Will Levis, who you mentioned, I think he is terrible. And I think that when you compare the two, both were very highly touted coming into the year. Will Levis has done nothing but disappoint, where C.J. Stroud has had some disappointing moments, but he's also had some Heisman-winning moments. Now, he's not going to win the Heisman. We'll talk about the winner of the Heisman coming up, but I think that there's no comparison between the two, and C.J. Stroud, if he's for some reason there, you take him. If Will Levis is there, you laugh, say no thank you, and pass.
Yeah, and it's all a fair point. I'm not saying like C.J. Stroud, don't draft him, anybody. Like, he's horrible. He should go undrafted. I would just rather someone else take that gamble. And I do think, Will Levis has struggled some a lot this year, but it's the same argument. Like, he's shown flashes where he looks like a very competent thrower, someone that can take the steps in the right direction. But I wouldn't want to touch either of them, honestly, at this point. If the Lions really believe in him that much, I'm going to go get this guy, then fine. I'm going to trust the staff until they give me a reason not to. They've had some pretty stellar drafts so far. Why would you not keep trusting them? But I'd rather avoid. If it's Will Levis, I'm going to be unhappy because I don't want to even take the chance because I'm too nervous that one's going to be a bit of a flop. So Will Levis, even though he's going to go in the first half of this first round, I think he should probably drop out of the first. But we're going to see 3, potentially 4 first-round quarterbacks, I would have to say at least, because there's just so many quarterback-needy teams out there. And I feel bad for whoever's going to draft, the Will Levises and, maybe Anthony Richardson goes there. Like, I'm going to feel bad for those teams because it's such a high risk, potentially high reward. I don't think it's a super high reward for Will Levis. I think he's got a ceiling of like a Derek Carr type guy, of like a very good quarterback, but like not dominant by any means. So I think he is a bit not what I want, where Anthony Richardson, if he figures it out, he's got all the tools to be, like that Lamar type of player, but not necessarily Lamar, but like that play style. So I will kind of feel bad, a little nervous for those teams that take shots on those guys because there's just so much risk involved there.
I'll take Hendon Hooker day 2 over both of those guys. Like, anyone not named CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, I will take Hendon Hooker day 2 over anyone else in that first round.
Yeah, fair. But if the Lions are going quarterback, I would much rather them spend a day 2 pick on Michael Penix because, like, even though he's had a history of kind of struggles his college career, he's always at least been efficient when it comes to his touchdown interception ratio. It's actually been solid over his career. It's just still some questionable decision making. It looks completely different this year. He's looked pretty dominant for Washington from start to finish. He looks super strong. I got a bit of disdain for lefty quarterbacks, as you can tell, because I think you have to be exceptional at the position to be able to be at least average in the NFL, because you're flipping play art. The ball's coming off different. Everybody in the NFL is used to right-handed quarterbacks, so the adjustment isn't always super easy. Some players can make it. The super talented guys can make it. Some players can't, and it's working really well with Miami. You're seeing that right now. Tua looks much better. He has some great playmakers that can kind of help make plays for him. You saw with Michael Vick, who was, if that was a right-handed quarterback, he would have been the greatest quarterback, greatest football player of all time. But left-handed makes things a little more difficult. He was still arguably one of the most dominant players of all time at his prime. He was just so good. I don't think that we're going to see Michael Penix become that kind of level player. I'm just saying that I think he can be potentially a very reliable, sturdy NFL QB. And taking him with the day 2 pick, it means you're not locking into him. I mean, if you go C.J. Stroud in the first round, you're going to hold on to him the most you can. You're going to try to get the most out of him you can. And if it doesn't work, then you're kind of stuck with him. I still think C.J. Stroud has a path of success in the NFL, but I would just rather stay away, continue building up those pieces, work on the defense a little more, and then take a shot on the day 2 quarterback.
And the quarterbacks in this class, one of those position groups where we're much higher on them in the beginning of the season than we are now, unfortunately. However, we'll go from quarterbacks that have kind of been regressing to now a quarterback that has been exploding upwards. That being Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has been absolutely fantastic. We got ESPN going on for some reason.
I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, all of my tabs are muted, but somehow it got going. But Caleb Williams has looked absolutely fantastic. This USC team with Lincoln Riley, the new head coach, has looked very good as well. There's a lot of questions on could they beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame, a very physical team, good defense, good run game, not a great matchup for USC. However, Caleb Williams comes out, looks fantastic, leads his team to a victory, and now they control their destiny.
Sorry, I was Googling something, so I kind of missed that last part that you said.
USC controls their own destiny now. They absolutely,
yes, they do.
Caleb Williams looked fantastic again, and they beat Notre Dame.
Yeah, no, they look super exciting. I would love to see USC be back. That's the reason I chose them over Texas, even though I think you chose USC over Texas, but we're going to pretend that I chose USC over Texas.
Nope.
But anyway, what's that?
I said no, we're not going to pretend that, actually, because I had USC over Texas.
We are going to. Well, I only chose Texas. I'd rather USC, but I chose Texas just to be opposite of you. Kind of hoping it's going to be a Penguins Red Wings situation.
Right.
But it is cool to see USC. I would love for them to be, one of those great powerhouse teams again, especially if they come over to the Big Ten, like it's kind of been rumored. They would make the Big Ten even better, even stronger. But they really do control their destiny here. I think they're in a good position to win their conference, and as long as they do that, they're going to be in the playoffs. You can't knock them out for any reason. So it's super exciting. Caleb Williams has been fantastic for them. I'm really happy to see them do well. It just sucks that they had to have that loss to Utah, because if they didn't, even if they lost their conference championship, I think they'd still be locked in the playoffs.
Yeah, and while we're on USC, let's just talk about it. Caleb Williams now the favorite to win the Heisman. You and I both put money on him to win the Heisman when he was at plus odds. Now it's looking a lot better for us. I'm excited to make some money.
Yeah, man, me too. I wish I did it in the summer. I saw him at some decent odds in the summer, but just, I was a little nervous, so I had only a couple bucks, and I spent them on higher odds players like Tyler Van Dyke and Bijan Robinson. But he's looked great, still got in on the action before he became the favorite. I don't remember who I saw tweet it, but someone said, Caleb Williams still has plus odds to win the Heisman. Go bet him while you can. So hammered him, and the next week he was down to minus 2,500 odds. So I know we're both excited about that. I think he's pretty locked and loaded as the Heisman winner at this point. I would be completely shocked if anybody else wins it. He just looks so good. He looks like something special. And if the Lions don't go quarterback early this year, I'm ready for them to pull a New Orleans Saints and just give up their whole draft to get the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, Stroud was like minus 135, and Caleb Williams was like plus 125, whatever it was. The next closest was Blake Corum at like plus 3,000. So it really can't. What is happening? I don't know why this keeps going. Stop. It's freaking making me lose track of where I'm at. My goodness, the name holds true today. We're not professionals. But Caleb Williams, like, he smoked CJ Stroud in these last 2 weeks. Stroud has struggled over the last two, while Caleb Williams has excelled. He's had that Heisman moment, and he is going to take it home.
I just drew a parallel. So in case you don't know the story, I don't remember what draft it was. It was 1999. The New Orleans Saints traded their whole draft plus like a third round pick and then upcoming draft to move up in the draft and take Ricky Williams 5th overall. Ricky Williams, in case you don't know, was a bust, but Ricky Williams, Caleb Williams both have the same last names. Lions should trade for Caleb Williams, and he's gonna make up for what Ricky Williams didn't do, and he's gonna become the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL.
Is that right?
Yes, it is, for the Detroit Lions. If it goes elsewhere, then who cares?
Oh, okay, gotcha. But Caleb Williams gonna win the Heisman. So
yeah, he's fantastic, man.
A little bit too late to bet on him with plus odds, but I'm sure you can still bet on him. The odds aren't going to be great, but feel free.
So if you bet on him at minus 2,500, I just want you to keep in mind you have to bet $2,500 to profit $100. So maybe don't do that.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. Well, let's talk about USC. They move up into the playoffs. They weren't there at the time of recording last week, but who dropped out, that being Ohio State. I want to talk about Ohio State again and Ryan Day, really. What do we think about Ryan Day? This is 2 straight losses to the Michigan Wolverines. This Ohio State Buckeyes team, like, it's just factual that they out-talent the Michigan Wolverines. They have better recruiting than the Michigan Wolverines, but Michigan has done something that Ryan Day's team has not been able to do, and that's become physical. Like, the trenches aren't even close. Michigan blows Ohio State's trenches out of the water. The defensive line controls Ohio State's offensive line, and Michigan's offensive line controls Ohio State's defensive line. Now, this wouldn't have happened back with Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer had fantastic defensive lines, fantastic offensive lines year in and year out. Not been the case for Ryan Day. It seems like he likes the flashy stuff on offense, but 2 straight losses to Michigan, that's really going to get people talking.
100% it is. And this is kind of what it comes down to for me. Just in this matchup, for example, Jim Harbaugh, it took him a few years him and his recruiters took them a few years to really find the right guys that can buy into the Michigan program and do what they need to do and make those adjustments and become dominant players, become a dominant team. And that's what's happened. Ryan Day, it's the whole, third base triple quote. Like, he truly walked into a get the program. Not saying that Harbaugh didn't, but Michigan was going through some of its worst years, when he came in. Like, they were going through some struggles. And Ohio State was just kind of gift wrapped to him on a silver platter. And he's had some success. Like, he's coached well. They're still getting big recruits, but to me, it seems like he hasn't assembled, the right team to put together a truly winning football program. Yeah, they beat the hell out of teams they should, but when it comes to the big matchups, they haven't really performed. They haven't had too many big matchups, and Michigan's just the team that's really been their biggest matchup since Ryan Day's been around. And like, he hasn't really done it too well. Besides, whoever the hell they played in the college football playoffs 2 years ago, when Justin Fields was in and kind of carried the team, put the team on his back,
Mm-hmm.
And that was all Justin Fields. That wasn't Ryan Day. I don't know. Is he worth firing? No. He saw such a phenomenal record. I don't know how you fire a guy this quickly into his tenure with that kind of record. But if things don't change the next couple of years, the team looks the same, even despite having 10, 11 wins, like, you might have to start exploring some options.
And that's where the quote comes in. When you start on third, that doesn't mean you hit a triple. Urban Meyer handed over a fantastic team to Ryan Day. Ryan Day has the name recognition of Ohio State. He's going to be able to get anybody in the doors that he wants, but he can't win a conference championship, at least over these past 2 years. He has not been able to beat Michigan, and Harbaugh has been horrible against Ohio State. I think he was 0-7 before last year, and now he wins 2 back-to-back. I did hear, I think it was Joel Klatt who said Ryan Day and Ohio State aren't in trouble. Like, they're still a fantastic team. They're still a top 5 team in the world. It's just that, they're top shelf liquor, and Michigan's a top shelf liquor now. Like, Michigan's just gotten so much better, which I think is fair. But at the same time, if this continues to happen where the Ohio State-Michigan games aren't even competitive, then it's going to be time where you got to start looking. And I saw someone say Mike Vrabel to Ohio State. If that happened, I'd be okay getting rid of Ryan Day for Mike Vrabel.
He can stay in the NFL. That's fine, because that would not be fun for the matchups against Michigan going forward, because he would just recruit these guys that can ride off his energy, these gritty ass football players, and would make battling in any game they play in so much harder. Yeah. So he can stay in the NFL. That's fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we move on to talk about some new coaching hirings, I do want to say it's a good thing our episode got delayed, because now we can bring some breaking news as Kentucky quarterback Will Levis declares for the 2023 NFL Draft.
Okay, I thought it would be something more exciting.
Well, I just got to say, if you're excited for a quarterback that has 2,000 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, and you want that next Carson Wentz, here you are, folks.
That's a perfect example, honestly.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I will. That is legitimately like the one first round pick that the Lions could make that I would not trust the staff and support. Like I mean, other than drafting someone supposed to go undrafted, like if realistic first round picks, that's pretty much the one I wouldn't accept. I'd so much rather than take Anthony Richardson and be like, we like the trades, we want to see if we can develop him. I'd rather you take that chance if you're going to go quarterback. I like just don't take the bait.
I've got a coworker who he's a Colts fan, and his wife went to Kentucky, or fiance, excuse me. And he was telling me for like 3 weeks straight how big of a Will Levis fan they are, and they want Will Levis to go to the Colts so bad. And I'm like, dude, you gotta pump the brakes here. I don't know. And then he texted me yesterday, and he goes, I think I'm an Anthony Richardson fan now. I'm like, dude, no. Can you pick a good quarterback? Please pick a good quarterback.
Yeah, that's tough. And it sucks for the Colts, because they do have to find a quarterback replacement, and they're not going to be bad enough to get Bryce Young or even C.J. Stroud. So they're going to have to take a chance on one of those guys. And if it doesn't work out, they're screwed. Yeah. So I do hope they can figure it out. But, hey, if they can somehow get C.J. Stroud, then more power to them. They'd have to trade up. They're not going to trade up for Bryce Young, but otherwise I think they're going to be really risking it for the best gift to any other guy.
Right. All right, let's talk about some new coaching hirings now. We got Luke Fickell.
Wait, actually, before you move on, I remember Chris saying this. He wants the Colts next year, draft Marvin Harrison. Then when it's Arch Manning's time to enter the draft, it'll be 2 years after that. Take Manning so that you can have the Manning-Harrison connection again. And I got to say, I don't want that to happen, because it wouldn't be very fun for the NFL, like in terms of the other teams and the Lions trying to compete, but it would be very fun to watch.
It would sell so many tickets.
100%.
And I'd love to see it. I'm going to be honest, though, curious to see what Arch Manning can do. Because right now, like, yes, he is the number one quarterback in the nation again. He dropped out of the number one quarterback in the nation for a couple of weeks. He's back there now. I've got my worries. He's not coming in like a Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion. He's got some stuff to prove, and I hope he can do it.
He definitely does, and a lot of it rides on his sophomore season was a bit down, or his junior season was a bit down. Had his dominant sophomore season, and his senior season started a little slow, but he's really picked it up going forward. So I think he'll be fine. I still think he's looking like a bona fide, first round pick at this point in his career. Things can obviously change. J.D. McCarthy is coming in as a potential first round pick, and now I would not put him in that category. So you never know what's going to happen, but he does have like every tool you would want for an incoming freshman to go on and really develop into a dominant NFL player. So I'm very much hoping he works out. I'd be very disappointed if he doesn't.
And I got to say that if he just comes in and steals Quinn Ewers' job as a true freshman, then I'm down. Then I'm saying first overall pick immediately. But yes. I feel like he's definitely going to be taking a backseat for a little bit. And once Quinn Ewers departs, Manning will take over. So excited to see what happens there.
Nothing wrong with that either.
Right. Let's now talk about some new coaching hirings. Luke Fickell going from Cincinnati to Wisconsin. One of the most successful coaches over the past couple of years, outside of the huge names like Georgia's coach Kirby Smart. That's it. Nick Saban doing well still. Obviously, he's the GOAT of coaching in college right now. Jim Harbaugh having some good seasons, but outside of the big names, Luke Fickell's been one of the best. He goes over to Wisconsin.
Yeah, Luke Fickell, the Pickle, his official nickname. He had a lot of success with Cincinnati, and I'm very happy to see him go to a bigger program. And I think Wisconsin's like a perfect fit. A pretty good historic team, someone that had a lot of signs of success the last few years. You've got a great running back prospect in Braylon Allen who can help carry your offense as you're trying to rebuild it. Him being a high draft pick in the 24 draft class will help you bring a little more notoriety when it comes to the skill positions too. So that'll be good. I think he's going to do a pretty good job recruiting because he did well at Cincinnati. I got to imagine that it's not going to change at Wisconsin, especially when you have better recruiters. You've got, better facilities, better competition, like better recognition. I got to imagine this Wisconsin team's going to be one of the top teams in the Big Ten again.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And then Matt Rule, he goes to Nebraska. And before you talk about Matt Rule and Nebraska, when I saw these two guys get hired, I was a little bit worried as a Michigan State fan. I'm like, gosh, I actually think both of these guys can have a lot of success. Now, I know Matt Rule doesn't have the recent success being in the NFL, but his time at Temple, his time at Baylor, huge successes, turned those programs around and got the NFL job for a reason. Like, he's been fantastic at the college level. So I think both these guys can have a lot of success. But as a Michigan State fan, I was a little bit worried. I'm coming into the Big Ten. I don't want to see that. But looking at it, I'm totally cool with it because the West is garbage. And if we can finally get some good teams out of the West, and it's not just, the East blowing out whoever makes it out of the West, like, thank you. Because we have great teams in the East. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, all top 10 teams. Michigan State was a top 15 team at the end of last year, and Mel Tucker, he's seen some success. The jury's still kind of out on what's going to be happening over there. I still have some optimism about the Spartans, but Big Ten West won by Purdue. That should never happen. I think Matt Rule and Luke Fickell coming over means Wisconsin and Nebraska in the next coming years will be the top of the Big Ten West.
And honestly, kind of looking back on things, maybe this would have been the right step, taking over a program like this for Matt Rule instead of just going right from the NFL to Baylor. The Big Ten's a much more prolific conference, and if you can go in there and you can bring Nebraska back to relevancy, which they haven't been relevant since like 1906, then that would bode well for what you're going to be able to do, kind of going forward. So if he can bring Nebraska to a relevant team again, I mean he's going to have this job pretty much for life, and I think he can because I do think he is a smart coach. It's just all going to come down to how well him and his recruiting staff do. It's going to be hard competition, but at least they have an easy path to success starting off in the Big Ten West because the teams are just so terrible. So if it's going to take him a couple years, can't expect it next year, but 2-3 years in, when he gets his guys in and they get playing, I think we're going to start seeing some real life coming from that side of the conference.
100% agree. I really hope to see Matt Rule, the Matt Rule of Baylor, out there again, because watching him at the pro level, especially, this year and last year, it's kind of a struggle. And I've been a big Matt Rule fan. I am a fan of this hiring for Nebraska, and I want to root for the guy again. It's been hard over the past 2 years, so excited to see what he can do in Nebraska. But we'll now look at the college football playoff rankings. Your top 6, Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC, all making the playoffs with Ohio State and Alabama as the first 2 out. Any big complaints here, Chase? I know a lot of people, including myself, have had some complaints with the college football playoff committee over the past couple of weeks, but this week, do you think they got it right?
For the most part, especially for the top 6, like, people are like, oh, 2 loss Alabama, what are they doing up here? Well, everyone else has 2 losses as well. So, like, you can't really say that any of the other 2 loss teams are better than Bama because, let's face it, they're not. Even though Tennessee beat Bama, Bama's the better team. They'd beat the hell out of them if they played again. So the top 6 is very fair. I am going to be mad, though, because if one of these teams lose and that are in the top four, I got a feeling they're going to put in Bama over Ohio State. And I don't think a 2-loss Alabama should be in there. I also just flat out think the conference championship shouldn't matter because all it is, it's another opportunity for a top team to lose. And they shouldn't be punished for having a rough game or if they potentially lose, especially if they're playing another strong opponent. And they shouldn't be punished for a team that doesn't have to play an extra game. Same thing goes for Notre Dame. If Notre Dame weren't in the top four, they shouldn't be able to get to move up anymore because they don't play a conference championship game. I think that's truly the case. So beside the point, moving on. We're not going to see either of those teams play conference championship games, so they should probably stay where they are. But if one of these teams do drop, if USC drops, if TCU drops, hell, if Michigan drops, I mean, we're going to see either one of these teams move in, and it's fair enough. But like we talked about it a little bit earlier too, or maybe it was on the previous recording, but Washington, I think they probably deserve to be higher looking outside the top six. I would certainly have them above Clemson, probably have them above Penn State as well. Maybe even Tennessee, maybe they're my seventh team. But it really doesn't matter that much because no one from that far down seemed to be getting in.
Yeah, the only real complaint I have, and it's not something I would die on, is you mentioned Alabama, Tennessee. You think Alabama would beat Tennessee right now, and that's why they should be there at 6. I agree. Right now, they would win. Hendon Hooker's not there, but the game should matter. Tennessee won head-to-head. They've got the same record. So I would argue Tennessee should be higher than Bama, but it's not a hill I'm dying on because realistically, neither of these teams should make the playoffs. Right now, what it should be, Georgia, Michigan, TCU, should all be locked because they all have 12 wins, 0 losses at this point. They should just be locked in, ready to go because guess what? Alabama, they can't get over 10 wins. And all 3 of them already have 12, so they should be locked in, ready to go. I think the only change that should be made is if USC loses, Ohio State should jump in. If USC wins, they stay. But I have that same fear, Chase. The College Football Playoff Committee loves the SEC, and I am worried that Alabama is going to find their way into the playoffs, and it's just going to make me upset. Now, do I think that Alabama can win the championship? Sure. But will they? No. I think Michigan and Georgia right now are probably better against Alabama than vice versa, but I just don't want to see them get in.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said 100%. I do think Georgia and Michigan would beat them more often than not, but when it comes to TCU and USC, Bama's just a better roster. They just, had some tough goes. Bryce Young has nobody to throw the ball to, but he's still talented enough to try to win games on his own, and the defense is always strong. And that's kind of what happened this year. That's kind of how they got their 10 wins. It wasn't because they had some dominant receiving game. It's because Bryce Young did his best, and the defense did his best to support him doing his best. So that's just kind of how things go, and I think they would have a chance at success in the college football playoffs, but I don't care. Ohio State should be the next team in, as we mentioned. I just hope to God USC doesn't lose, TCU doesn't lose, Michigan doesn't lose, and Georgia doesn't lose, just so we can have those 4. We can move on. Because people are saying, oh, TCU, they're fraudulent. They shouldn't be up there. I heavily disagree. They beat the hell out of everybody they've played. Every win they have has been damn near impressive because they've either have a dominant win or it's a better team and they still safely win. So I can't see people arguing. I guess Did I say they had a loss? I might have said they had a loss. So I don't know why I said that. I was just staring at USC on my screen, but I am talking about TCU. Regardless, I think TCU 100% deserves to be in here. And if anyone says they're not, then they're silly.
I agree. They should 1,000% be in there. However, if I wanted to see the best playoff, I think I would put Ohio State in over TCU. But I think as of right now, TCU absolutely has to be in. And I think that even if they lose the conference championship game, they should still be in over Ohio State. So,
but they won't be.
Yeah, probably not. But, it is what it is. That's my thoughts on it. Let's now talk about the conference championship games. What could we possibly see change? First up, we got USC versus Utah on Friday night. Now, Utah's beat USC already. That's USC's one loss. It was a close game. Are we going to see a different result here? Are we going to see a result that keeps USC in the college football playoffs?
It's very rare you see a team beat another team twice in a season in the college football. One, because it hardly ever happens, but 2, because it's usually 2 good teams, and good teams usually find a way to adjust and learn what they did wrong in the other game. Where you do learn more from losing than you do from winning, because winning you think you did everything right, where they still had flaws in your game. Where losing, you understand what you did wrong, you understand their flaws, you try to attack. So I don't think Utah can win this game. I think it's a pretty safe bet for USC, and I really hope that is the case.
The last time that I can remember where a team beat another twice in one season?
What's that?
I believe it was 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, when Utah beat Baylor, and then Utah beat Baylor yet again in the Pac-12 championship. It's weird. Utah's got this mojo with them, but I'm really hoping USC wins it. I've put my money on Caleb Williams, and being hopeful, does that equal results? No. But I'm still going to take USC here. I think Caleb Williams has really just exploded onto the scene since that game, and I think he'll be a much better version of himself in this one. All right, Georgia at LSU. LSU just suffered a horrible loss to Texas A&M. Texas A&M moves to 5-7, and LSU now 9-3. I can't lie, I'm a little bit worried for Georgia, but this really should not be a matchup.
Yeah, I'm not worried at all. I don't think this is going to be a game. When you compare these two, there's not like a single thing I would say that LSU is just better in. I really don't think it's going to be much of a competition. Georgia should breeze by unless Stetson Bennett decides he wants to be left-handed and throw 9 interceptions.
Speaking of breeze by, we've got Michigan and Purdue. I mean, this one's even less of a matchup than that one, so there's no worry whatsoever from me.
There is very, 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 very slight worry for me, just because, there's so much history with Michigan of getting your hopes up just to be let down, especially the last few years. Last year was a little bit different, but prior to that, it was like, oh, building me up, oh, it dragged me down. So there's still a slight, bit of pessimism. I don't know. It feels like not a word. Regardless, I'm a little worried just because there's a slight chance, but in reality, it should not be much of a game.
I will say, I saw this stat earlier today. Jeff Brom, not quite sure how to pronounce his last name, but the head coach of Purdue, he is, in his career, he is 3-0 against top 5 teams. So I just figured I'd spark the flames a little bit more, really get you quivering over there. But
hey, there is a reason they're called the Purdue Boilermakers.
Oh,
they get it done.
There we go. I got to say, if Purdue wins, my whole work is going to go crazy. Half the people I work with are from Purdue. So that'll be
so annoying.
All right, Kansas State at TCU. This one could be a tough matchup for TCU. Kansas State's been really good this year, currently ranked 10. But like I said prior, I think that even if TCU were to lose this, they should still be making the playoffs, because you look at their only loss would be to Kansas State, and that's a top 10 team. They'll be inside the top 10 team. That's a good loss to have because of how good they are. But TCU, take it?
K-State's been a very good team all year. As you mentioned, they're ranked where they are for a reason. I like K-State. I love Deuce Vaughn. Guy's just an absolute dog. But I still don't think this game should be competition. TCU has looked so well throughout the year. I got to imagine this should be a good win for them. I think a lot of these conference championships are kind of one-sided, and this should just be another case. Like, K-State might hold up and play well, but TCU, if they want to show that they've been this dominant team, this is another game you have to at least go out and win. Not necessarily dominate, but you're we beat a very tough opponent. Go ahead, try us. But if they lose this game, they're going to get pushed out of the college football playoffs. I disagree with it, but they're going to. So they need to make sure they win this game.
And their one matchup against each other prior, TCU won by 10. So a solid win there against Kansas State. I think Kansas State's gotten better over the time, but TCU's defense has looked fantastic. So excited to see what we get out of these two purple teams. We're not talking about UCF or Tulane because I don't really care about them.
Boo! Yes. Are we going to talk about UNT and UTSA then?
No. But
okay,
we can talk about Clemson, North Carolina, just because I am hoping Drake May has an absolute showing against number 9 Clemson.
Yeah, that would be super cool because Drake May is another exciting prospect for the 24 class, and I think Clemson is a bit overrated. DJU sucks. Just let Kate Klubnik take the reins already. They're going to keep going through this where they're their backup quarterback takes over the starter's job. The starter transfers and still goes to the NFL draft eventually. It's just to happen. Jalen Hurts didn't quite happen with Trevor Lawrence, but it's going to happen with DJU. It's gonna happen with K. Klubnik's just going to keep going through this cycle, and they've been interesting to watch. But Drake May, he looks uber talented, so to see him pull out this win, that would be huge.
I got a question for you, Chase. If Georgia were to lose to LSU, are they still in the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't. They'd have to lose 100-0. I think legitimately. If they lost 99-0, I think they keep in 100. They'd be like, okay, all right, maybe we start thinking about it. I don't think there's any chance they miss.
I 1000% agree with you, and now I just want to kind of show the kind of bias that the committee has for the SEC because Chase, if TCU loses, are they still in the playoff?
0% chance.
They've got the same record. They've done the same stuff. You can argue that TCU has had, very solid wins. Maybe not as high end as Georgia because Georgia beat number 1 Tennessee when Tennessee was there at the time. But their best win currently, Tennessee ranks 7. TCU's best win, Kansas State ranks 10. It's not that far apart. TCU has had some good competition. They have some good wins. But the difference in name, the difference in brand would have these two similar teams. Now, I think Georgia's the better team when you look at stats and everything, but when you look at what has happened on field, the results, the stuff that matters, they are very similar teams, but brand name would dictate who gets in and who doesn't, which is kind of sad.
It is. And I understand that, like, at the end of the day, they're trying to make money. And a Alabama versus Georgia matchup potentially, or an Ohio State versus Georgia matchup potentially. Those are two more recognizable brands that have bigger fan bases, so you feel like they're gonna get a better draw. But I'm gonna be honest, no matter who the hell's playing, I'm watching both these games. Like it doesn't matter. You're getting my viewership. But if I had something that was going on and it was Georgia versus Ohio State, maybe I wouldn't want to watch it as much. Or if it's Michigan versus USC or something, I'd still probably watch that. But regardless, if TCU's in there, I'm figuring out however the hell I got to do it to find that game because I want to watch them, see what they can do, watch them potentially compete. It's super cool to see someone new get in there. So I think their logic is flawed a little bit. I think that you might get more fans watching just because TCU is a new face to the game.
Mm-hmm. All right, last but not least, Chase, if you're Georgia right now, who would you rather face? Are you rooting for USC to beat Utah? Would you rather face USC? Or are you rooting for Utah hoping that you get Ohio State?
USC, without a doubt. No chance. Even though Ohio State has had some, kind of questionable moments, lost to Michigan in blowout fashion, it's still USC who's on kind of on the up and up still. Caleb Williams has played great, but it's still, everything's brand new there. Like this is kind of year one of everything. So you'd rather go Ohio State, who's got a bit more of solid infrastructure, or you'd rather not play them. That's what I'm saying. So I'd much rather have USC if I'm Georgia.
I 100% agree. I mean, you look at Caleb Williams, the Heisman winner, and Jordan Addison, the last year's Biletnikoff winner. This is a dominant duo. But if C.J. Stroud has Marvin Harrison and a healthy Jackson Smith and Jigba, that is far more scary. And Caleb Williams is the better quarterback. So I agree with you. I think Ohio State's got the better defense than USC. But, I don't know. I am a little bit afraid of USC in the college football playoffs just because of that quarterback position. Now, the defense isn't even close to Georgia, Michigan, and TCU. But Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, they've had some magic before. So teams should be worried. But excited to get into it. That's going to do it for the show. Yeah.
Hold on. I just got to mention, I like Lincoln Riley. I want to see him have success. But
you hate him?
Absolutely hilarious.
You hate him?
What's that?
You hate him? You hate Lincoln Riley?
I like him. I'm saying it's absolutely hilarious how much James Droz hates Lincoln Riley because that video, like when they lost to Utah, he laid into him. That was the happiest ever in his life.
I kind of want them to make playoffs now because he was like, you're not going to make playoffs. And if they imagine if they make playoffs and win it all.
Oh, man, he's going to be in shambles.
Oh, it'd be kind of funny.
It'd be like I assume if they get in at 4 and they play Georgia and then they beat Michigan in the national championship, he'll still find a way to just absolutely berate Lincoln Riley. He's going to pretend that Michigan wasn't in there. He'll say, how did you lose to USC? How did you lose to that fraud, Lincoln Riley, all that type of stuff. Yeah. So he's still going to find a way to lay into him.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's going to do it for the show. I want to thank you so much for coming out and giving it a listen. If you want to stay up to date with all that we do, you can follow us on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. That's, again, on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. If you are watching on YouTube, if you could, please give us a like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to turn on notifications. And down there in the comments, let us know who you think makes the playoffs. Do you think it stays Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and USC? Or do you think the likes of an Ohio State or an Alabama sneak their way in? Let us know in the comments below. If you're listening on a podcast platform, if you could, please give us a 5-star rating and a follow. We would really appreciate it. I want to thank you so much for coming out. And as always, we're not professionals.